Her father left her just one animal, but she turned it into a $1 million empire. Emily Johnson felt her legs trembling as she waited in the lawyer's office. Her father had passed away 3 weeks ago, and now the moment had come to hear what he had left for each child. It was when the lawyer opened the sealed envelope that everything fell apart. Her brothers, Michael and Brandon, received the 2 houses, the commercial lot, and the savings account. For her, there was only one line in the will. To my daughter Emily, I leave the chicken Ginger, which she will know what to do with. Is this a joke? Michael was the first to let out a loud laugh that echoed through the office. The old man really thought she was worthless. Brandon joined in the laughter, pointing mockingly at his sister. Emily felt her face burn. There she was at 24, working since she was 15, selling vegetables at the Columbus Farmers Market to help with household expenses, while her older brothers barely finished high school and lived off odd jobs. And now this. A chicken. A simple old chicken that her father kept in the backyard. I always said women are only good for taking care of animals and doing laundry. Michael continued laughing as he put away the property documents. At least Dad knew you well. The lawyer, a man in his 60s named Mr. Anderson, cleared his throat uncomfortably. There's one more clause here. It says that none of the heirs can contest or question the division, under penalty of losing everything they received. No need to worry. Brandon patted Emily on the back with false sympathy. Our little sister must be happy. She got a pet. Emily took the paper the lawyer extended, quickly read the few lines about the chicken Ginger, and left that room without saying a word. Her brother's laughter followed her down the hallway to the street. The May sun was beating down hard when she reached the house where she had grown up, in the Meadowbrook neighborhood. The small 3-room building now belonged to Michael. She had 2 weeks to move out. She went straight to the backyard, where the chicken Ginger was pecking calmly near the guava tree. So it's you. Emily crouched down, observing the reddish-brown feathered bird that must have been about 5 years old. That's all he left me. The chicken tilted its head as if understanding, and continued pecking at the ground. Emily picked it up, feeling her heart tighten. Her father, Robert, had always been a quiet man, working as a janitor at a public high school. He never showed much affection, but he was never cruel either. Why would he do this to her? Em, are you still there? Michael's harsh voice came from the back door. I hope you get your things soon. I'm going to renovate this house to rent out. I'm going. Emily gathered her few clothes in an old suitcase, picked up the box with family photos, and with the chicken under her arm, went to the only place she had, the tiny studio apartment she shared with her friend Rachel on the other side of town. You brought a chicken. Rachel, a slim 26-year-old who worked as a manicurist, widened her eyes when Emily appeared at the door. It's all my father left me. You're kidding. I wish I were. That night, Emily improvised a small pen in the tiny laundry area of the studio apartment, using market crates she had saved. Ginger settled in as if she had always lived in that cramped space. Emily barely slept, turning over in her head what she would do from then on. The next morning she woke up with Rachel shaking her shoulder. Em, wake up. Your chicken laid an egg. So? Chickens lay eggs. No, look, there are 2 eggs here. Emily got up, still drowsy with sleep, and went to the laundry area. Inside the makeshift pen, there were indeed 2 large eggs with strong, well-formed shells. Is that normal? I don't know, I've never had a chicken. Rachel carefully picked up one of the eggs. But it seems odd, doesn't it? 2 eggs in a single day. Emily searched on the old cell phone she had. Most hens laid 1 egg per day. Some days, yes, others, no. 2 was unusual, but not impossible. Still, something about it caught her attention. Could that be why her father had specifically left her that hen? I'll see if I can sell them at the market tomorrow, she said, storing the eggs in the small refrigerator. But the next day, when she went to set up her vegetable stand at the neighborhood farmer's market, she encountered an unexpected obstacle. Her cousin Jessica, who managed the space distribution, strode down the aisle between the stalls with an unfriendly expression. Emily, I heard you want to sell eggs now. It's just a few, Jess. My hen laid them and... Do you have a license for that? A license? It's 2 eggs, cousin. Doesn't matter. Here at the market we follow the rules. Either you have breeder documentation or you can't sell animal products. Jessica crossed her arms, her red lipstick accentuating her malicious smile. Those are the regulations. Since when do you care about regulations? Old Joe's stall sells cheese without receipts. Old Joe pays his fee properly every month. You can barely afford the space for your vegetables. Jessica stepped closer, lowering her voice. Look, Em, I know you only inherited one hen while your brothers got everything. Small town. News travels fast. Don't try to make up for it by taking space from those who work seriously here. Emily felt the anger rise but swallowed it. She couldn't lose the space she had. The vegetable sales were her only steady income. Jessica had always been jealous of her for reasons she never fully understood, and now, knowing her situation, was taking the opportunity to humiliate her. She returned home with the 2 eggs still in her bag and a lump in her throat. Rachel suggested she try selling door-to-door in the building, but that brought in almost nothing. Still, with no alternative, that's what she did. In the first week, Ginger laid 2 eggs every single day. Emily sold some to neighbors, others she and Rachel ate. The money barely covered buying feed for the hen. Her brothers hadn't even shown their faces after the will reading, probably too busy planning what to do with the real inheritance. It was on a Tuesday afternoon that everything began to change. Emily knocked on the door of a yellow house at the end of the street, offering eggs. The one who answered was a lady about 70 years old, white hair tied in a bun, kind eyes behind thick glasses. Fresh eggs? The lady, who introduced herself as Mrs. Henderson, examined the eggs carefully. It's been a while since I've seen eggs with such strong shells. What breed is your hen? To be honest, I don't know. It was my father's. Your father raised chickens? Just this one. He was a school janitor. Mrs. Henderson bought 4 eggs and invited Emily in for coffee. The house was simple but cozy, full of plants and old photos on the walls. While preparing the coffee, the lady chatted. I knew a school janitor years ago. What was your father's name? Robert Johnson. Mrs. Henderson stopped what she was doing. Robert Johnson? That tall, somewhat quiet young man who worked at downtown public high school? That's him. Emily felt a shiver. You knew him? Knew him? Dear, your father was my husband's student about 40 years ago. Mrs. Henderson sat at the table, her eyes shining with memories. My William taught science classes. Your father was a brilliant boy, you know. Had a tremendous curiosity for biology. My father? Emily could hardly believe it. The quiet man she had known never showed interest in anything beyond work and television. He wanted to study veterinary science, agronomy, those kinds of things, but he came from a very poor family. Ended up dropping out of school to work. My William always regretted that. He said your father had a special gift with animals. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now continuing. Emily drank the coffee Mrs. Henderson served, but could barely taste it. A part of her father she had never known was being revealed right there in that kitchen. Mrs. Henderson, do you know why my father would have left me just 1 chicken in his inheritance? He left you a chicken? The woman smiled. What kind of chicken? A reddish-brown one. He called her Ginger. She lays 2 eggs a day. 2 eggs? Mrs. Henderson leaned forward. Every day? Every day so far. My dear, that's not common. Your father must have worked on this for years. Worked on what? On breeding a special line. Mrs. Henderson stood up and went to a shelf, returning with an old notebook. My William passed away 10 years ago. Before that, your father would sometimes come here to talk with him about raising poultry. William would jot down some things in this notebook. Emily flipped through the yellowed pages, finding notes on chicken genetics, crossbreeding desirable traits, and there on several pages was her father's name mentioned. He was trying to develop a more productive and resilient bird, explained Mrs. Henderson, but he did it all in his backyard with no resources. It was his passion. William always said if your father had studied, he would have done great things. Emily left that house with her head spinning. The father she thought she knew was a complete stranger. Why had he never told her any of this? Why had he hidden this passion? In the following days, She began observing Ginger with new eyes. The chicken really did seem different from the others she saw at the farmer's market. She was more active, her feathers had a special shine, the eggs were larger and sturdier, and she kept laying 2 eggs every day with impressive regularity. "You need to make more money from this," Rachel said one evening while they were doing the math in the notebook. "Selling door to door isn't going anywhere." "But Jessica won't let me sell at the farmer's market. Then sell on the street, in front of the city market, I don't know. But sell." Emily started waking up at 5 in the morning to get a spot in front of the city market. The sun hadn't even risen yet, and she was already there, with a small cooler box and the eggs. At first, no one bought them. People walked right by, preferring to buy inside the market. Until one Friday, a woman stopped. "How much?" $3 a dozen. "Are you sure they're fresh?" "Laid this morning, ma'am. You can check the date I wrote on the shells." The woman bought a dozen and left. The next day she returned with 2 friends. "My dear, these eggs of yours are different. The yolk is more orange, the flavor is something else. Where do they come from?" "From my chicken. She has special genetics." "Well then, I want 2 dozen today." The news began to spread by word of mouth. Within 2 weeks, Emily was selling all the eggs Ginger produced and still had people wanting more. That's when she realized she needed to expand, but how? She only had 1 chicken. It was Mrs. Henderson who gave her the idea. "Why don't you hatch some eggs? If the genetics are good, the chicks will inherit them. But Ginger never broods. She just lays and that's it." "Then you need an incubator." "That must cost a fortune." "Not if you improvise. My William taught your father how to make one with a cardboard box and a light bulb. I have the instructions here in the notebook." Emily spent the weekend setting up an improvised incubator in the utility area using a large cardboard box, 2 40-watt light bulbs and a cheap thermometer. She selected 12 of the most beautiful eggs Ginger had laid and set them to hatch. "Is this going to work?" Rachel doubted, looking at the contraption. "It has to." The 21 days of waiting were the longest of Emily's life. She checked the temperature every hour, turned the eggs 3 times a day as the instructions said, and prayed every night for it to work. The money from selling the eggs was running out, and she needed this to succeed. On the 21st day, she woke up to a faint little noise coming from the utility area. When she rushed to see, one of the eggs had a small crack. Her heart nearly leaped out of her mouth. Throughout that day, 8 chicks hatched. Tiny, wet, chirping softly. Emily cried with emotion. It had worked. It really had worked. Michael showed up at the studio apartment a few days later without warning. "I heard you've been selling eggs around here." "So what?" "So the chicken belonged to Dad. Technically, everything she produces is part of the inheritance." "You're kidding, right?" "I'm serious, Em. You inherited the chicken, but the eggs, the chicks, all that is profit derived from the inheritance. Brandon and I are entitled to a share. You got 2 houses and a plot of land. I got an old chicken. And yet you're managing to make money from it. That shows Dad wasn't so unfair after all." Michael leaned against the wall, arms crossed. "Look, I don't want to cause trouble. I just want what's fair. 30% of what you earn from the chicken and everything related to it. Get out of here. Think about it, Em. I can make your life very difficult. I can spread rumors at the farmer's market that your eggs are no good. I can talk to Jessica to get you banned for good. Either you agree to share things willingly, or we'll do it the hard way. Get out of my house before I call someone." Michael laughed, shaking his head. "You've always been stubborn. You'll regret this." And he kept his threat. The following week, Emily started hearing rumors in the neighborhood. They said her eggs were of poor quality, that she tricked people about the dates, that the chicken was sick. Sales dropped by half. Emily knew it was her brother's doing, but she couldn't prove anything. She spent 2 sleepless nights watching the chicks grow in the utility area and thinking about giving up everything. But then she remembered what Mrs. Henderson had told her about her father. Years and years working on that lineage, never giving up. "If he didn't give up, I won't either," she told Rachel. "But how are you going to turn this around?" "I don't know yet, but I'll figure it out." The chicks grew quickly. At 6 weeks, Emily could see they were all females, which was statistically very rare. Only 1 rooster would have happened by chance in that batch. But no, there were 8 females. I think your father really knew what he was doing, Rachel commented, impressed. When the Pullets were 3 months old, the building owner showed up with a complaint. Emily, the neighbors are complaining about the noise from the chickens. They barely make any noise, Mr. Wilson. It doesn't matter. This is an apartment, not a farm. Either you get rid of the animals or you'll have to leave. Just give me 1 more month, please. I'm looking for another place. 2 weeks, that's the most I can do. Emily panicked. She didn't have the money to rent another place, and even if she did, where would she find a space that accepted chickens? That's when Mrs. Henderson showed up with an unexpected offer. Dear, I have a piece of land that belonged to my husband. It's about 3 kilometers from here, near the old highway. It's been abandoned for years. And you want to rent it? I want to lend it, without charging anything. You clean it up, use it to raise your chickens, and when I need it back, you leave. How about that? Mrs. Henderson, I can't accept that for free. Yes, you can. Your father was good to my William. Consider this a way of paying it back. The land was bigger than Emily had imagined. Almost 1,000 square meters covered in weeds, with a small old 2-room house that looked like it was falling apart. But it was hers, at least temporarily. She spent 2 weeks cleaning up the land with Rachel's help. They cleared the brush, removed debris, and fixed what they could in the little house. Emily set up a makeshift chicken coop using scrap wood a neighbor was going to throw away and wire mesh she bought with the meager earnings from selling eggs. Look at that, the chicken princess now has a palace. Brandon showed up on the property one afternoon, bringing Michael along. What do you want? To check on our investment, Michael replied, looking around mockingly. This place is a dump. It's not your investment. Get out of here. You don't understand, Brandon approached, trying a more conciliatory tone. We can help you. We have money now from the inheritance. We can invest in this. Do it right. In return, we take 70% of the business. 70%? It's fair. We put in the money. You put in the work. You're ridiculous. Get off my property. It's not your property, Michael retorted. And before you get too comfortable here, we're filing a lawsuit challenging the will. Dad wasn't in his right mind when he wrote it. Any judge will see the division was unfair. There's a clause that prevents you from contesting it. We found a lawyer who said that clause is worthless. So enjoy these chickens while you can, little sister. Soon they'll be ours too. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now, continuing. Emily spent that night awake, sitting on the floor of the old house, the chickens sleeping in the coop she had built. She couldn't lose that too. It was all she had. But how would she fight her brothers if they had money for lawyers? The next morning she went to see Mr. Anderson, the lawyer who had read the will. He received her kindly, but got straight to the point. Emily, that clause preventing contestation is indeed valid, but your brothers could claim your father wasn't of sound mind. If they can prove that, the entire will could be invalidated. My father was perfectly fine. Can you prove it? I don't know. He was quiet, didn't go to the doctor much. Then it will be difficult. If they file the lawsuit, it will turn into a long and expensive battle. What if I prove my father had a specific reason for leaving the chicken to me, that it wasn't madness but planning? That could help, but it would have to be well documented. Emily remembered Mrs. Henderson's notebook. Would it be enough? She decided to investigate further. She returned to the house where she grew up, which Michael hadn't renovated yet. She asked to go in, claiming she wanted to get some personal things. He reluctantly allowed it. In the small back room that had been her father's, Emily searched through everything. Inside the old wardrobe, under blankets, she found a shoebox full of notebooks. Her heart raced as she opened the first one. It was her father's handwriting, a bit shaky but legible, page after page about raising chickens, notes on crossbreeding, dates, characteristics of each bird he had raised over the years. What are you doing? Michael appeared at the door. Getting Dad's things. Let me see that. They're just old notebooks. If they're Dad's, they're part of the inheritance. Emily clutched the box to her chest. They're personal documents. They have no commercial value. Let me decide that. Michael tried to grab the box, but Emily dodged. These notebooks proved Dad wasn't crazy. They prove he worked for years on this chicken line, and they prove he left it to me because he knew I would continue his work. You're not leaving here with that. Yes, I am. And if you try to stop me, I'll scream so loud the whole neighborhood will come to see. Michael hesitated. Emily took the opportunity and ran out, the box held tightly in her arms. She didn't look back until she was far from that house. In Mr. Anderson's office, she showed him the notebooks. The attorney flipped through them carefully, an expression of surprise growing on his face. This is gold, Emily. Your father documented everything. This shows planning, lucidity, clear purpose. If your brothers file a lawsuit, this will defeat any claim of insanity. So I'm safe. More or less. They can still bother you in other ways, but at least the inheritance is guaranteed. Back at the property, Emily spent days reading her father's notebooks. It was like getting to know a different man. On the yellowed pages, he described every crossbreeding he had done, every characteristic he had tried to select. He spoke of dreams to create the perfect bird, one that was productive but also disease-resistant. And on the last page of the last notebook, there was a note that made her cry. If I'm writing this, it's because I know I don't have much time left. My children don't understand the value of what I built here. Michael and Brandon only want what's easy, what's already done. But Emily, my girl, she has the patience I had. She knows how to work hard without complaining. That's why I leave Ginger to her, the best bird I ever raised. I know she will understand. I know she will make this grow, and I hope that in doing so she will forgive me for not being the father she deserved. I never knew how to show affection with words, but I show it now with action. The hen is my legacy to you, daughter. Use it well. Emily hugged the notebook to her chest, tears wetting the old pages. She finally understood. Her father hadn't been cruel. He knew her better than she knew herself. The pullets began laying eggs when they turned 5 months old, and just like Ginger, they all laid 2 eggs a day. Emily couldn't believe her luck. Now she had 9 hens producing 18 eggs daily. It was more than she could sell on her own. You need help, Rachel said. You can't do everything by yourself. I don't have the money to hire anyone. Then accept free help. I can come here after the salon, help you sell. Rachel, you already do so much by sharing the studio apartment with me. And you're my friend. Friends help each other. With Rachel selling at the market entrance and Emily at another neighborhood farmer's market, where Jessica didn't have influence, sales doubled. In a month, Emily had enough money to buy materials and improve the chicken coop, building proper nests and a larger enclosure. That's when different kinds of buyers started appearing. A well-dressed man, about 40 years old, stopped at her stall one morning. Are you the girl with the special chickens? That's me. Do you want to buy eggs? I want to understand where they come from. I bought a dozen from your friend last week. They're different from regular eggs. It's the genetics. My father worked for years developing the line. Interesting. My name is Professor Wilson. I teach agronomy at the university. May I see your chickens? Emily took the professor to the property. He examined the birds with professional attention, jotting things down in a small notebook, asking questions about diet, behavior, and production. He became especially interested when she told him they were all females from the same hatch and all laid 2 eggs a day. This isn't just luck, young lady. This is genetics selected very competently. Your father really knew what he was doing. The professor turned to her, his eyes shining. With your permission, I would like to study these birds more deeply. Run some tests, genetic analysis. Of course, everything would be registered in your name. You would retain full ownership. Will this cost me anything? No. In fact, it could bring you benefits. If we confirm there's a valuable genetic mutation here, you could register the line, even patent it in some cases. Patent a chicken? Patent its specific genetics, yes. It's more common than you think. Emily agreed. She had nothing to lose. The teacher took blood samples from the birds, promising results in a few weeks. Meanwhile, she continued working hard, waking up before sunrise to take care of the chickens, sell eggs, and clean the property. Jessica appeared on the property one afternoon, bringing an unexpected proposal. I heard your chickens are becoming a hit. So? So maybe I was too harsh on you. After all, we're family. Jessica smiled with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. How about coming back to the market? I can get you a good spot. In exchange for what? Nothing. I just want to help. Jessica, you've never wanted to help me in your life. What do you really want? The cousin sighed, dropping the facade. Fine, the brothers paid me to get you out of the market, but now they've cut my payment because you're selling elsewhere. So I thought, why not earn from you directly? Give me 20% of your sales, and I'll give you the best spot at the market. No, you're making a mistake. I'm not. Now get out of here. The refusal had consequences. Jessica started spreading rumors that Emily's eggs came from mistreated chickens, that the property was dirty, that there were rats. More rumors, more lies. But this time, Emily was prepared. She took pictures of the clean coop, filmed the healthy chickens pecking around, and showed her customers that everything was a lie. Who will people believe, she said to Rachel, a jealous person who only speaks ill of others, or me who shows the truth? And it worked. The customers kept buying. Some even increased their orders out of solidarity. Professor Wilson returned 4 weeks later with results that changed everything. Emily, you need to sit down to hear this. Go ahead, Professor. I'm prepared for anything. Your chickens have a genetic mutation I've never seen before. A specific combination that increases egg production without compromising the bird's health. This is extremely rare. Your father was a self-taught genius. Does this have any value? Value? Girl, breeders worldwide pay fortunes for genetics like this. If you can register this lineage, you can sell breeders to farms, cooperatives, even export. The professor showed a paper with numbers that made Emily dizzy. We're talking about a potential of hundreds of thousands of dollars per year. This can't be true. It is true, but you'll need to expand. Raise more birds, establish a solid flock, register everything properly. It won't be easy. I don't have the money to expand. But you can get it. With these results, any bank would give a loan. Emily went to 3 banks. All refused. Without guarantees, no credit history, nothing in her name, she was considered high risk. The dream the professor had planted seemed to die before it began. That's when Michael and Brandon showed up again, this time with a more elaborate proposal. We heard about the professor's study, Michael said, sitting on the log Emily used as a bench near the coop. Impressive what you've achieved. I achieved nothing. It was my father. Be that as it may, now you have something of value. And do you know what people with something of value need? Investors. Let me guess, you want to invest. Exactly. Brandon opened a folder with documents. We have an official proposal. We'll put in $200,000 to expand this place. In return, we take 75% of the business. 75? Before it was 70. That was before we knew the real potential. Now we know what it's worth. It's take it or leave it, Em. Leave it. You're stupid. Michael stood up, irritated. Without our money, this will never go anywhere. I'd rather it not go anywhere than hand it over to you. We'll sue for the inheritance again, this time with full force. We'll claim that you manipulated your father to get the chicken. We'll make your life hell, Brandon threatened, his face red. Do whatever you want. You won't intimidate me. After they left, Emily broke down. She was alone against the world, it seemed. No money, no support, just a borrowed piece of land and 9 chickens. How would she make this grow? It was Mrs. Henderson who brought the unexpected answer. She showed up at the lot one afternoon with a younger woman, about 50 years old. Emily, this is Samantha. She was a student of my William and is now a businesswoman in the organic food industry. Mrs. Henderson told me about your chickens, Samantha said, shaking Emily's hand firmly, and about the special genetics. Can I see? Emily showed her everything. The coop, her father's notebooks, the professor's results. Samantha listened attentively, asking smart questions, taking notes. I have a proposal, she finally said. I don't want to buy your chickens or your genetics. I want a different kind of partnership. You remain the owner of everything. I provide capital and market knowledge. We split the profits 50-50. Why would you do that? Because I believe in the potential, and because Mrs. Henderson was very important to me when I was young. Consider this a way of giving back. 50-50, really. No tricks. None. We have to do the contract properly, with a lawyer and everything, but it's a partnership of equals. Emily looked at Mrs. Henderson, who smiled encouragingly. Then she looked at the coop, at the chickens pecking calmly, unaware they were the center of so much dispute. She thought of her father, of the years he had dedicated to this in silence. I accept. The contract was signed 2 weeks later. Samantha invested $300,000 in the expansion. They built professional co-ops, bought proper equipment, hired a veterinarian to monitor the flock. Emily registered the lineage as Ginger Goldline in honor of the original hen. Michael and Brandon tried to sue, claiming the hen was a family inheritance and any profit from it should be shared. But Mr. Anderson presented the father's notebooks as evidence that the hen had been specifically left to Emily for a defined purpose. The judge kept the inheritance intact. "You're making a mistake," Michael said after the hearing. "We'll still find a way to get what's ours." "It's not yours, it never was," Emily replied, tired of fighting. With the proper structure, the flock grew quickly. In 6 months, Emily had 200 hens of the Ginger Gold line, all producing above average. Restaurants began ordering the eggs, paying a premium price. Other breeders sought to buy breeders. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out, now continuing. That's when the first international offer appeared. A Dutch company specialized in poultry genetics offered $2 million to buy the Ginger Gold line. "That's a lot of money," Rachel said when Emily told her. "You could accept it and live comfortably for the rest of your life. But then I'd lose control. I'd lose what my father built." "So what? He's gone. But his legacy continues here, and I want to continue." Emily refused the offer. Instead, she created a cooperative with small breeders in the region. She sold chicks of the Ginger Gold line at an affordable price to local producers, on the condition that they follow animal welfare standards and not sell the genetics to large companies. The initiative generated jobs. Families that once barely survived began to have a stable income from raising chickens. The region became known for the quality of its eggs, attracting buyers from other cities. Emily unintentionally became a kind of community leader. "So you've changed a lot around here," Professor Wilson said during a visit. "Your father would be proud. You really think so?" "I'm sure of it." It was on a November afternoon that Emily received a visitor she wasn't expecting. A woman around 60 years old appeared on the property, asking to speak with her. She had well-kept grey hair, elegant but simple clothes, and eyes that seemed to carry an immense weight. "Are you Emily?" "I am. Can I help you?" "My name is Linda Miller. am your mother." The world stopped. Emily hadn't seen her mother since she was 8 years old, when she simply left home saying she was going to the market and never came back. Her father never spoke about it, and she had learned not to ask. "What do you want?" "I know I have no right to show up like this after so long, but I need to talk to you." "Then speak." Linda looked around, seeing the chicken coops, the movement of employees, the structure Emily had built. "I heard about your success. I read about you in the city newspaper, about how you turned Robert's inheritance into a thriving business, and you came to ask for money. I didn't come to ask for anything. I came to tell you the truth about why I left." Linda sat on a bench near the gate, her hands trembling. "And about your father's will." Emily felt a chill in her stomach. "What about the will?" "I influenced him to leave the houses and the money to the boys. I said a woman didn't need assets because she would marry and her husband would support her. Robert disagreed but ended up giving in. He only didn't give in about the chicken. He insisted that Ginger was yours." "Why? Why would you do that?" "Because I was foolish. Because I believed in things I learned from my upbringing. Because I couldn't see that you were as capable as your brothers. Maybe even more." Linda wiped away a tear. "When I left, it was because I couldn't bear the weight of the guilt of having abandoned you when you were a child. of having pressured your father to leave you out of the inheritance. I thought leaving would hurt less. It hurt more. I know that now, and I came to ask for forgiveness. I don't expect you to take me back. I don't expect anything. I just wanted you to know the truth." Emily remained silent for a long time. Part of her wanted to scream, to throw out that woman who had abandoned her. Another part, the part that was still an 8-year-old girl trying to understand why her mother hadn't come back, wanted to hug her and cry. "Did Dad know you influenced the will?" He knew, and even so, he never blamed me. He said everyone does what they can with what they know, and that when we learn more we have to do better. Did he forgive you? I think so, but I never forgave myself. "You can stay," Emily finally said, "but on one condition. I don't want a partner. I don't want you in the business. If you stay, it's as a mother, that's all. And you'll have to rebuild trust from scratch." I accept. It was difficult. Linda was practically a stranger. Conversations were tense, silences awkward. But little by little, week after week, they built something new. It wasn't the mother-daughter relationship from the movies, but it was real, and it was theirs. Michael showed up 6 months later, without his usual arrogant air. He came alone, without Brandon. "Can I talk to you?" "Depends. Did you come to sue again?" "No. I came to apologize." Emily stopped what she was doing. "Apologize? Brandon and I are broke. We spent all the inheritance on foolish things. I tried to start a chicken farming business copying yours, but I didn't know what I was doing. I lost everything." Michael looked at the ground ashamed. "And I realize now that you were the only one who really inherited something of value from Dad. It wasn't the chicken. It was the ability to work, to not give up. That's what he passed on to you, and I never had it." "And what do you want from me?" "Nothing. I just wanted to apologize for everything I did, for trying to take from you the only thing Dad left you, for being a terrible brother." Emily took a deep breath. She could send him away. It would be fair after everything he had done. But she remembered what her father had written in the notebook. About second chances, about doing better when we learn more. "Do you need a job?" "What?" "I asked if you need a job. I need someone to handle the administrative part. It's nothing glamorous, it's manual work with paperwork. But it pays right." "Are you offering me a job, after everything?" "I'm offering you a chance to start over. If you want it, accept it. If you don't, the door is open." Michael accepted, and for the first time in his life, he really worked. He arrived early, left late, learned from his mistakes. Brandon showed up a few weeks later, also asking for a chance. Emily gave it. "Why are you doing this?" Rachel asked, "after everything they did to you?" "Because holding on to anger is exhausting, and because Dad would have done it." The business kept growing. In 2 years, Emily had 500 chickens from the Heritage Ginger Gold Line. She employed 20 people, sold eggs and breeders to 6 states, had trademark registration, genetic patent, everything in order. And she still maintained the cooperative with small producers, helping those who were starting out. But the biggest achievement came when she inaugurated the Robert Johnson Poultry Research Center, a space dedicated to studying and improving the genetics of free-range chickens, open to students and small breeders. Professor Wilson was the first researcher hired. On Inauguration Day, Emily had a surprise. She set up a special area in the center with photos of her father, the old notebooks protected in display cases, and the original Ginger, now quite old but still alive, in a comfortable coop where she spent her last days as a mascot. The ceremony was packed. Producers who were part of the cooperative, employees, local authorities, Mrs. Henderson, Samantha, Professor Wilson, and there in a corner were Linda, Michael, and Brandon, not as the protagonists of the story, but as part of it. "Today I inaugurate this center in honor of the man who dedicated his life to a quiet dream." Emily began her speech, her voice choked. "My father never got the recognition he deserved. He worked 30 years as a janitor, but in his spare time he was a self-taught scientist. He developed a chicken lineage that now supports hundreds of families, and he left it to me, not because he thought I was special, but because he knew I would honor his work. She paused, looking at the ginger chicken resting peacefully in her enclosure. When I inherited just one chicken while my siblings got houses and money, I felt humiliated. I thought Dad didn't love me, but I was wrong. He gave me something much more valuable than properties. He gave me a legacy. He gave me purpose. He gave me the chance to prove to myself what I was capable of. Applause filled the hall. Emily saw Linda wiping away tears, Michael and Brandon nodding with genuine pride, Mrs. Henderson smiling with eyes full of water. After the ceremony, when everyone had left, Emily was alone in the center. She walked over to Ginger's enclosure and crouched down. "Look where we've come, old girl," she said to the chicken, which tilted its head as if understanding. "Who would have thought, huh? A simple chicken changing so much." It was then that she noticed an envelope attached to one of the photos of her father in the display case. It wasn't there before. She approached and saw her name written in the familiar handwriting. With trembling hands, she opened it. It was a letter her father had written years earlier, apparently to be delivered on the day she inaugurated something big with the chickens. How had he foreseen this? "My dear Emily, if you are reading this, it means you made it. It means you turned that simple chicken into something greater. I always knew you would. Forgive me for not being more present, for not showing with words how proud I was of you. But know that every time I saw you working at the farmer's market, waking up early without complaining, helping at home without asking for anything in return, my chest swelled with pride. Your brothers are my children, and I love them. But they want the easy things. You always knew that value lies in work, in effort, in dedication. That's why I gave you Ginger. It wasn't a punishment. It was a gift. The greatest I could give. Houses will lose value, money will run out. But a legacy built with your own hands that lasts forever. Keep doing what you do best, turning small seeds into great forests. With all the love I never knew how to express, your father, Robert." Emily hugged the letter to her chest and finally let all the tears she had held back for years fall. She cried for the father she never really knew. She cried for the girl who felt rejected. She cried for the woman who almost gave up. And she cried with gratitude for having persevered. In the following months, the Robert Johnson Center became a regional reference. Agronomy students interned there. Small producers came to learn techniques. The Heritage Ginger Gold Line was studied by researchers from 3 universities. Emily expanded the cooperative, creating a mentorship program where experienced producers helped beginners. She set up a microcredit fund for those who wanted to start raising chickens but had no initial capital, all without abusive interest rates, all thinking about lifting up the community. A multinational company made a new offer, $5 million for the genetics. Emily refused again. But this time she made a counter-proposal. The company could license the genetics for use in other countries, paying royalties that would be invested in the research center. The company accepted. With the royalty money, Emily built a technical school attached to the center. Young people from the region could study there for free, learning about animal husbandry, farm management, sustainability. It was a way of multiplying the knowledge that her father had started alone in the backyard. Linda got involved with the school, teaching crafts and helping in the community garden they created. She wasn't an administrator, she had no decision-making power, but she was present. And little by little, she regained her daughter's respect. Michael and Brandon became dedicated employees. They never again asked for partnership or percentage. They accepted their place and worked hard. Brandon discovered a talent for handling the chickens, having patience no one imagined. Michael turned out to be good with numbers, organizing the finances with precision. "You know what I learned?" Michael said in a conversation with Emily, 3 years after starting to work there. "Dad didn't leave us out. He gave us exactly what we needed. To you he gave the legacy, because he knew you would honor it. To us he gave easy money so we would learn that easy money is worthless. We had to fall on our faces to grow up." That's a beautiful way to see it. It's the truth. If he had given me the chickens, I would have sold everything in the first month. You turned that into an empire because you had what was necessary inside you. Character, dedication, vision. 5 years after inheriting the Ginger chicken, Emily Johnson owned a business worth $6 million. It employed 50 people directly and had helped over 200 families start their own farms through the cooperative. The Heritage Ginger Gold Line was exported to 12 countries. But numbers didn't tell the whole story. What really mattered were the changed lives. The boy who managed to pay for college by selling eggs. The widow who supported her children by raising chickens. The elderly couple who found income in retirement. Each story was a seed planted by the father's quiet work and cultivated by Emily. One Saturday afternoon, she was in the pen with Ginger when Mrs. Henderson appeared. "I brought something for you." The lady extended a small box. "What is it?" "They're guava seeds. From the tree that was in your father's backyard. I managed to save them before Michael cut it down for the renovation." Emily opened the box, looking at the small dried seeds. "Why did you keep these?" "Because I remembered an afternoon when I saw you and your father under that guava tree. You must have been about 10 years old. You were sad because you got a bad grade at school. Do you know what he said?" "I don't remember." "He said, 'My daughter, you are like these guava seeds. You may seem small and worthless, but if you find the right soil and have patience, you become a tree that feeds many people.'" Mrs. Henderson smiled. "At the time, I thought it was beautiful. Today, I see it was prophetic." Emily planted the seeds in a special bed at the center. In the following years, they grew and became strong trees that bore sweet fruit. And she always told the story of those guava trees to anyone who visited. The business kept growing, but Emily never lost her essence. She maintained direct contact with the cooperative's producers. She personally visited those who were just starting out. She gave talks at schools about entrepreneurship and overcoming challenges. And every year on her father's birthday, she gathered the whole team for a celebration at the center. It was at one of these celebrations, 7 years after inheriting the chicken, that Emily made an important announcement. "I've decided to create a permanent fund with part of the company's profits. This fund will finance scholarships for young people in the region who want to study agronomy, veterinary science, or related fields. It will be called the Robert Johnson Rural Education Foundation." Applause filled the hall, but Emily wasn't finished yet. "And I've also decided that when I'm no longer here, the company will become a non-profit foundation. The profits will continue to support the cooperative, the technical school, and the research center. No one will inherit this as private property. It will belong to the community." "Em, are you sure about this?" Michael asked, surprised. "And your children, when you have them?" "My children, if I ever have any, will inherit what my father left me. Not a property, but an example. That the true legacy isn't in what you accumulate, but in what you multiply." That night, alone in the center's office, Emily opened her father's last notebook. There, on the back cover, was a phrase she had never noticed before. "The difference between an estate and a legacy is simple. An estate you keep, a legacy you spread." She smiled, closing the notebook carefully. She finally understood everything. Her father hadn't left her a chicken out of cruelty or neglect. He had left a seed, and she had done exactly what he expected. She had turned that seed into a forest that provided shade and fruit for many. The chicken Ginger lived to be 9 years old, an exceptional age for the species. When she passed, she was buried in a special corner of the center, under a guava tree. Emily placed a simple plaque. "Ginger, the chicken that changed everything." But the lineage continued. Thousands of chickens descended from the original Ginger were spread across the country, each laying their 2 eggs per day, each carrying the legacy of a caretaker who dreamed of perfect birds. And Emily kept working. Not because she needed money, she already had enough to live comfortably, but because she understood that work wasn't about accumulating wealth. It was about honoring the effort of those who came before. It was about opening paths for those who would come after. 10 years after inheriting a single chicken, Emily Johnson was known throughout the state as the woman who turned an animal into an empire. But she preferred another title, the daughter who honored her father. One spring morning, she received a letter from an international university. They wanted to study the Heritage Ginger Gold Line, document the history of the genetic development done by her father, perhaps even write a book about sustainable farming. Emily accepted with one condition, that all profits from the publication be directed to rural education programs in Brazil. The university agreed. The book was launched 2 years later under the title From Backyard to Global, the story of the Ginger Heritage Line. It detailed in scientific terms the work of Robert Johnson, but also Emily's journey. It became an academic reference in 3 countries. With the sales money, Emily expanded the scholarship program. Now, young people from 20 different cities were studying with support from the Robert Johnson Rural Education Foundation. Some were already returning with degrees, working at the cooperative or starting their own businesses. "You built something incredible," Samantha, her partner, said during a visit. "Your father would be proud." "I hope so, but do you know what makes me proudest?" "What?" "It's not the size of the business or how much money we make. It's knowing that everyone who comes through here leaves a little different. They learn that it's possible to start with almost nothing and build something big. They learn that legacy matters more than profit." Samantha smiled. "You've become much more than a businesswoman. You've become an educator. I learned from the best teacher who never set foot in a classroom." The years passed. Emily turned 30, then 35. She remained single, dedicated to her work. Some people asked if she didn't want to marry, have children. She replied that maybe one day, but for now she had another family to care for, the community she had built. Linda aged at the center, helping where she could, proud of the daughter she had almost lost. Michael and Brandon grew as people, learning the value of honest work. And Mrs. Henderson, now over 80, kept visiting, bringing stories of her husband and the time she had known Robert. One autumn afternoon, exactly 15 years after inheriting the chicken Ginger, Emily was organizing her father's notebooks when she found one last page hidden in the lining of one of them. How had she not seen it before? It was another message, written in a shakier handwriting as if he were already ill. "Emily, if you found this note, it means a lot of time has passed. It means you didn't give up, that you kept going even when it got hard. I want you to know that I chose you not because you were a woman or a man, young or old, strong or weak. I chose you because I saw in you something I didn't see in your siblings, the ability to see beyond the present. When you were 7, I found you in the backyard planting orange seeds you had eaten. I asked why you were doing that if it would take years to bear fruit. You replied, 'But one day it will, Dad, and it will be beautiful.' That was the day I knew. I knew you understood the concept of legacy even without knowing the word. You understood that some things are worth it even when we don't see immediate results. The chicken is my way of saying, plant, daughter, plant, care, have patience. And when harvest time comes, don't keep it all for yourself. Spread the seeds again. That's how we multiply joy in the world. I love you more than I ever managed to express. Your father." Emily read and reread it, tears smudging some words. She vaguely remembered that day with the orange seeds, but she never imagined it had marked her father that way. She left the office and walked through the center. She saw students learning in the classrooms. She saw employees taking care of the chickens. She saw families from the cooperative visiting. She saw the guava trees she had planted growing strong. And she understood. She hadn't just inherited a chicken. She had inherited a life philosophy. And she had multiplied it in ways her father could never have imagined. That night she wrote her own letter, not to keep hidden but to post at the entrance of the center where everyone could read, "To all who pass through here, my father taught me that the value of things isn't in their price, but in what we do with them. He gave me a chicken when he could have given me money. And in doing so it gave me something much greater, the chance to prove my own worth. If you're starting with little, know that little is enough when you have dedication. If you're giving up because the path is hard, remember that the best harvests come from seeds planted in hard soil. If you're achieving success and don't know what to do with it, plant again. Multiply. Spread. The world doesn't need more people who accumulate. It needs people who multiply." Emily Johnson, daughter of Robert Johnson, guardian of the Ginger legacy. The plaque remained at the entrance of the center for the following years, and every person who read it left with something different in their heart. A spark, perhaps, the same spark that Robert planted in his daughter years ago with a simple chicken. The empire that Emily built continued growing, but never lost its essence. It continued being about people, about community, about legacy. And every egg sold, every chick born, every family helped was living proof that sometimes the smallest gift can be the greatest treasure. Years passed, and the story of the chicken that became an empire turned into legend in the region. They told it to children in schools. They cited it in entrepreneurship lectures. They studied it in universities as an example of sustainable development. But for Emily, it remained simple. It was about a father who loved his daughter, but didn't know how to show it with words. It was about a chicken that carried years of silent work. It was about not giving up when everyone thought you had nothing of value. And every time someone asked what the secret to her success was, she gave the same answer. There's no secret. There's work. There's patience. There's believing that a small seed can become a big forest. And there's honoring those who came before by planting for those who come after. End of story. And you, what did you think of this story of overcoming? Did Emily make the right choices by refusing so much money to maintain her father's legacy? Leave your honest opinion in the comments and tell us where you're watching from. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss other moving stories that bring life lessons.